this meeting have been satisfied. A copy of the notice having been sent to Asbury Park Press, News 12, and the Coaster and filed in the office of the Township Clerk on July 26, 2023. Emergency notice. There is an emergency exit through the courtroom doors and 2 exits at the rear of the room. There is no smoking. No new cases will be started after 10:30 p.m. and no new testimony will be taken after 11 p.m. All meetings will be videoed and audio taped and shown on the Township of Ocean Community Cable Channel, Channel 22 on Verizon Fios, and Channel 77 on Cablevision. All cell phones must be turned off, or if you need to make a call, please make your call outside the meeting room. So I think what we're going to do is have a swearing in of some 2 new members.
We'll do them separately. Mr. Monte will go first.
I think you want to...
All the way up here?
You didn't have to. That's
Okay.
I don't think you can use it.
We have a sports book that you can...
I state your name.
Mr. Monte,
Solemnly swear
do solemnly
that I
swear
will support the Constitution of the United States
to support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all the duties
perform all of the duties
of the position of
member class 4
for the Township of Ocean Planning Board
for the Township of Ocean Planning Board
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mark.
And I think Mike Palutis now?
Down there.
Well, now you got it.
Mike, do you want me to stand by you or something, or are you okay?
I state your name.
I, Michael Palutis,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
that I will bear true faith
I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties
all the duties
of the position of
the position of
Member Class 4
Member Class 4
for the Township of Ocean Planning Board
for the Township of Ocean Planning Board
according to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
So congratulations, Julia and Mike, and welcome aboard, and thanks in advance for all the good work that you're going to be doing here as volunteering on this board, so thank you. So I think what we should do is actually do a formal roll call now.
Here.
Duffy?
Here.
Fisher?
Here.
Davis? Leo? Mel?
Here.
Bonnevic?
Here.
Mamie? Palutis?
Here.
Demonte? Here. Weinstein?
Here. Did they call Dave? Oh, I missed it. Okay. So we have minutes for approval, July 24, 2023, August 28, 2023, August 28, 2023, November 27, 2003, December 11, 2023, and March 25, 2024. Can we just get a all in favor? Or does it have
That's
to be?
fine. It's all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Also, I just want to say the administrative modification request is no longer on our agenda. It was actually meant for, I think, the zoning board, so it's no longer on our agenda. So now we're going to hear the new case, Ocean Relco LLC, 2118 Highway 35, Block 3.01, Lots 2 and 3. The applicant proposes to modify a pre-existing non-conforming car wash in 2 phases. Improvements include Phase 1, modifying the existing queuing area to provide 2 pay station islands, kiosks, menu boards, and canopies, and 18 queuing positions. Provide 7 vacuum stations for patrons to vacuum vehicles. Add landscaping along the Route 35 frontage, and modify pavement stripping. Phase 2, and adding landscaping along Route 35 frontage.
And Mr. Chairman, I have the following exhibits to mark in.
Yep.
Just wait. All right, Ms. Crimpell, I'm going to mark in the following.
Bear with me one
Yep,
second,
take your
Mark.
time.
Okay, go ahead.
Exhibit A1 will be the application itself. Exhibit A2 is the survey. Exhibit A3 is the minor site plan. So those are the only exhibits I have from the applicant at this time. I know you're going to have more.
We do have more, and we're just
Yeah.
piling them right now, so I'll give, good evening, members of the board, Jennifer Krimko on behalf of the applicant. So with regard to the application tonight, those of you who've lived here in Ocean as long as Dave and I did, know that this site is, at least for our lifetime, has always been a car wash. It was, at least for 40-plus years, it's been operated as a car wash prior to all of the current zoning regulations. It is extremely non-conforming as to most of the bulk requirements, as well as the now, in effect, conditional use requirements. At the time this application was originally filed, my client only owned Lot 3, the one that the car wash is on. Lot 2 needs to be part of this application because the owner of Lot 3 has an easement over Lot 2 in order for the queue to enter the car wash. When the application was filed and we reached out to the owner of Lot 2, it was discovered that it was for sale, so my client purchased that property. We now own both parcels. The application before you tonight is purely for the modernization and upgrade of the car wash lot itself. In going through that process, we realized that there is an existing driveway basically in the center of the 2 lots that if someone were to drive into it would be incredibly unsafe and they would drive right into the queue. For the last decade plus, there have been cones preventing that from occurring. One of the things that we wanted to do as part of this application was eventually close off that driveway. Because we've been in this process for more than a year and the client really needs to have the operational aspects of this updated, we filed it in 2 phases. Phase 1 would be, and as you're going to hear through the testimony, all of the improvements to Lot 3, the car wash lot, and the easement area to effectuate these site upgrades. Then as part of Phase 2, we would make an application to the DOT to close the driveway and add that additional landscaping. And the reason we did it in 2 phases is because, as you know, the DOT application could take months and months and months, up to a year sometimes. So we didn't want to be held up with the other improvements while we waited for the DOT, so we did it in 2 phases so we could bond them separately and move forward with them separately. Just by way of a little bit more background, I know that our engineer reached out to your engineer to talk about what could be done in the meantime without a DOT permit. And Ben suggested, and we thought it was a great idea, that we landscape just to our property line, and that doesn't implicate the DOT right-of-way, and we wouldn't need approval. Unfortunately, we consulted with traffic engineers and had this very issue on another application with the DOT and discovered that any change to the access, meaning where cars can now pull onto our site and they wouldn't be able to permanently, would require DOT approval, which is why originally we were going to come with you and say, yeah, we're happy to landscape now. We can't do that and not run afoul from the DOT approvals. One of the other things, as you're going to hear from the testimony, is we're proposing to put in pay kiosks in an effort to actually expedite the queues. I checked with my client in between the workshop, and a question that Mr. Paludis raised, a great one, is whether or not that's going to back things up. As you're going to hear from his testimony, they are manned pay kiosks. It's not like an ATM where you go and nobody's there to help. There is somebody there, and what the kiosks do is, it will, as you're going to hear through the testimony, it actually, instead of all the cars converging at once you pay, your gate opens, and you go through, and then it goes, and it actually streamlines it, but he'll give you some information on that. And then finally, we did have an opportunity to go over Jim and Ben's reports. We're happy to incorporate almost all of the comments that they had in them, as you'll hear through the testimony that we go through it, and that includes adding additional trees. We're going to offer testimony with regard to existing lighting, as well as providing a trash enclosure. And I think we might, when we do, and we'll need a variance for that because it's existing in a front yard and it'll stay in a front yard, I think we will be the only user along Kings Highway, maybe one other, that actually has an enclosure. Everyone else's are kind of just out the way that they're now. And then lastly, the project is non-conforming with regard to lot area from conditional uses. Well, by having the two lots considered one, we're actually improving that nonconformity. And currently, there's no parking for employees. And what we're proposing to do, since we own both lots, is to designate 2 spots on lot 2 for employees. So we're actually making this property way more conforming than it currently is. So with that, I'm going to turn around and see that my exhibits are.
And let me
Okay.
mark in the board exhibits.
So while we're doing that, did you already so that's a good overview.
Yeah, and I
Right.
was just going to move in some more exhibits, but I can wait until after.
Yeah, let me mark in the board exhibits.
Sure.
Exhibit B1 will be the planner report. Exhibit B2 will be the engineer report. Exhibit B3 will be the crime prevention report. Exhibit B4 will be the traffic safety report. Exhibit B5 is the code enforcement report. Exhibit B6 is the environmental commission report. Exhibit B7 is the fire marshal report. And Exhibit B8 is the Department of Public Works report. And before I go back to the script code, let me just swear in our professionals. Do our professionals swear in testimony they're going to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help them God?
I do.
I do. Thank you both. Ms. Grimko.
I just wanted to add a couple
Sure,
of
go ahead.
exhibits. So
Yep.
then as A4 is an aerial exhibit by Stonefield Engineering, and I'm just looking plan. It's written on here, prepared 4/25/24. I imagine that's not the date of the aerial, but the engineer will testify to that. A5 is an exhibit that was in response to a comment by, I think, the Environmental Commission, where they had asked about a larger
Thanks.
truck being able to circulate on the site. A5 is a truck turning plan revised through 4/16/24, and it does show the larger F-250 being able to maneuver through the site. And Mr. Manel, if I hand you the, pass them down. Almost done. 2 more.
Yep, take your time.
A6 is a site plan Phase 1 rendering exhibit. It has a date prepared of 4/26/24.
Thank you.
4, A 5, that's A6.
What was the date, I'm sorry?
4/26/24.
Thank you.
And as you'll hear, it's just a color rendered version of Phase 1 overlaid on the aerial. And then lastly, A7, entitled Site Plan Phase 2 Rendering Exhibit, is dated 4/26/24. And I would just ask you to disregard the 1 of 2 on the bottom and the 2 of 2 on the bottom.
Are you asking for any approvals on Phase 2 tonight, or?
Yeah, the only approval for Phase 2 is to close the driveway. That's it.
And the landscape. A little bit of landscaping.
No, that's part of the closing driveway. I apologize. They're part and parcel. We can't do the landscaping without the DOT permit.
Anything else you'd like to share
No.
right now? Okay.
Nope, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
So, Jim, would you like to go through your
I
highlight?
think she covered most of my concerns. Actually, my concerns that I had were the landscaping, the number of trees that could be put on the site, which would be more, the trash area, and the access, as far as access from Route 35. There are some variances that are necessary. One is that the accessory buildings have to be the same height and setback requirements for the principal building, and the canopies over the pay stations are technically buildings because they're intended for occupancy and they have a roof, and that's what the land use law definition is, and they don't meet the front yard setback requirement, but I don't have a problem with that. There's really no way they can do it, first of all, and there's a hardship. The location of the curb cuts, I think, has been addressed, and I think that'll be improved once phase two is done. These freestanding signs, I think, are more of a technicality. Two of the signs are the menu board signs that are really internal to the site, not readily visible from off-site. And the third sign is actually there now, and they're not changing that. So I don't see that as an issue. The landscaping within 15 feet of the curb is a variance. And again, if they don't get that variance, they can't put the landscaping on the site because the site's so narrow. And with the type of development that's on the site now, you couldn't do it. The other two variances, the mulching material, they amended their plans, and they comply, and the design, again, the landscaping is not something that's extremely difficult, so I really don't have an issue with granting that deviation as long as they work with Ben and me on the landscaping.
Which we will, but Jim, I have a question. After reading your report, and I didn't have a chance to reach out to you, and again, I think it's technical in nature. Well, not a building, the vacuum stations and the
Okay.
central vac station are structures.
Okay,
And
yeah,
those
that's true.
structures
They're in
are
the front yard.
technically
You're right.
allowed in a front
You're
yard.
right, yeah, so technically,
So
that's
to the
another
extent
variance.
that it's a new variance, even though we're replacing what's existing,
Yeah,
I would just
yeah.
ask the board to incorporate that as well, because technically these structures are within a front yard setback.
Okay, so so when you start going over this, you're gonna go over some of the things that he wrote?
100%.
Okay, great. Like how many trees we're gonna have and all that stuff.
Well-
One thing, Jim, I wanted to ask you is, how it feeds back into 35. So after you get your car wash and how it filters into 35. Is there any issue you see with that?
Well, you don't go back onto,
No.
no, you do go back onto 35.
You go back onto
But I
35.
think
Your
the
car gets
engineer
washed and then
will
you go
talk
back onto
about that.
35.
I don't have an issue with it, it's been functioning that way for years.
Okay,
Right, so that's something my engineer will talk about, the site circulation.
And the only other thing, which isn't in my report, which should have been, maybe I alluded to it in a indirect way, is what is going to happen with the train cellar building in the meantime, because I know they're planning to come back with a site plan for that part of the site at some time in the future. But until then,
Nothing.
yes, that's gonna remain vacant.
Correct, it will
Yeah,
be.
okay,
if-
okay.
So again, anything we do with that lot would require us to come in for site plan approval. So the building will remain vacant, and the lot will not be used with the exception of the 2 employee parking spaces until we come in for site plan approval.
okay.
We did not get over here the Exhibit A6, the site plan 1 phase exhibit, which I imagine is kind of important.
The phase 1 and phase 2?
We got the phase 2, we didn't get the phase 1.
Jennifer, do you have a
Do you have other
timeframe on
copies?
that phase two? I'm sorry, on the building, the vacant building?
No, we don't at this time. It's not part of this application. But
Page 1 of 1?
the intention is,
Yeah, I got this.
the intention is, as soon as he can build out the improvements on this, we're gonna be ready to move forward with the next, I don't wanna call phase 2 because it's not part of this application, with regard to an application for the build out on lot 2.
This is 1 of 1.
Would you like a preview? The preview is it likely won't be a building, it will likely be additional vacuums for use with the car wash, but right now there is nothing pending. So the building would likely be removed.
If you, do we have, so we can ask Jim some questions, or we can wait till council kind of presents the whole thing and then kind of go through that. Are we okay with that? Do you have any questions you want to ask Jim real quick?
I just have quick ones.
Yep.
Jim, in the EC's report, Norm pointed out some concerns with the variety of ginkgo trees they were putting in. Do you share that concern?
But quite frankly, I'll defer to Norm on that because he's more of an expert on the botanicals than I am.
So then Ms.
We'll
Primko-
change it.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Mr. I always want to pronounce the G.
I know, everyone does.
I'm sorry, Mr. DeFilia. We were going to go through that as we went through the presentation. When I say we're going
Yeah.
to do it subject to Jim, we're assuming he's going to implement the appropriate comments from the Environmental Commission through whatever he's going to require.
Okay.
Okay. Bennett, do you have anything that you want to share about your report?
I think Jen kind of touched on all the points in my report. I'll really wait to hear from the engineer to give testimony about, each of the things such as parking, the circulation, the landscaping and the lighting, and then any other things that come up.
Okay, cool. So why don't we turn it back to you and you can,
I have a question for you.
oh, you have a comment?
Yeah.
Sure, good.
On your report about the 18 spaces,
Yes.
Yeah.
when I read through it and when I reference back to C6 in the packet that we received,
Okay.
got a little feedback. It looks like the arm that you were referencing, Ms. Krimko, about after you're paying it, goes right through the vehicles in the drawings that I have. So I'm trying to understand if that's true, that's not 18 spaces.
No, I don't believe it will, but I would just ask if we sit tight on that and let the experts testify how it's going to work, and he could probably be better to answer how his plan is drawn up than Jim or Ben.
Okay. So I mean, on the drawings that we received,
I don't know what you're, can I?
it's, references C6 on ours here, but the arms that you're referencing go right through the vehicle.
And again,
I don't know
I'll-
for the scale, but if we're counting that these are 18 vehicles.
I understand what you're saying. I'll have Aaron discuss that.
Okay, so why don't you bring up your people to go through with us?
People, just
Thanks.
person to start. Aaron Chan, please come join me. And I don't know if once he's sworn, I don't know that Aaron's ever testified here, so we'll
Yeah.
take a moment to qualify him.
Sure, you want to tell us a little about yourself, Aaron?
Sure.
Let's have him sworn in
All
first.
right, sorry.
Do you swear testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth self you got?
I do.
And just state your name for the record.
Sure. My name is Aaron Chan. Last name is spelled C-H-A-N.
And you're a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey?
That's correct. License is in good standing as well.
And you've been accepted as an expert in other boards.
25 boards in the state of New Jersey.
Submit him as an
Great.
expert.
Sure, accept your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so Aaron, being that you're the expert and having heard all the comments to date, why don't we walk the board through what's existing on the site and what we're proposing by way of improvements?
Sure. So we'll back up a little bit to aerial exhibit A4. This was prepared by Stonefield Engineering, 425.
And there's a microphone right there, Aaron, if you want to stay. The engineers can never figure that out.
You have to press the on button.
Lou?
Yeah, it's on.
That was good.
Okay. So just to back up a little bit, just to give the board a little bit of color of the surrounding area as it is relevant to the access and to the circulation with this site. So located on the Route 35 southbound here, we have, to the north, we have the Belltones Hearing Aid Retail Store. To the east, we have Route 35, opposite of the Go Coast Cadillac dealership. To the south, that's the Blue Swan Diner. And to the west, obviously the Kings Highway, that's also the self-storage building for life storage. As Jen has already explained, this property is comprised of the two separate lots, Lot 3 being predominantly that car wash lot, and Lot 2 being that train cellar lot that's been vacant for some time. On Lot 3, the car wash lot itself, single tunnel building, 2-lane queue with a 19-car capacity. It operates in a counterclockwise orientation. Currently, there are no pay stations, and there's a total of 7 vacuum stalls on the existing site. And the drive lane that accesses the entrance of the building that's the portion that's covered by the access easement. That's a part of Lot 2.
And Aaron, currently the circulation is they would enter from the southern driveway on Route 35, enter into one of the 2 queue lanes, go through the queue, come out, and they could either make a right to go out of Kings Highway, they currently could go left out of Route 35, or they could go to the vacuums.
That's correct.
And we're not changing that in any way.
That's correct. The access is described as being maintained, so the driver expectancy, the customers who's comfortable with going to the site, all that would remain with our proposed site improvement.
Okay, and let's talk about what we are proposing now. And since we don't have it on a board, Aaron's going to sit down with me and he'll just reference what we moved in before you. Oh, I'm sorry, before we do that, you did prepare the truck turning to confirm per the Environmental Commission that an F-250 can maneuver through the site.
Yeah, that's correct. So that's exhibit A5, and we did that, prepare that exhibit at a direct response to, I believe, Norm's letter, where he indicates he has some concerns about F-250 of a 22-foot length entering the site. And we had originally prepared the F-250 that's 19-foot in length, and he had chosen the super extended cab version. 22-foot long truck is going to maneuver more like a van. So understandably, we had to turn that vehicle in the southbound turn lane as opposed to decelerating through the shoulder and then making the right.
So it can be done, but realistically, we don't expect those oversized large trucks to come to a commercial tunnel car wash.
That's correct. It can be done via Route 35 southbound, or alternatively, they can come down Kings Highway and make a left into the site and have much more maneuvering room. So either way would work.
Okay. And let's talk about the exhibit that we moved in as A6, what we're proposing by way of part of the Phase 1 improvements.
Sure. So in Exhibit A6, which is really the submitted site plan, C4, with the added benefit of coloring and the proposed landscaping, just to give the board a clear visual. What we're proposing there essentially are the pay stations that's being incorporated at the about midpoint through the queue lanes, the vacuum stalls that's being formalized, and new vacuum equipment being installed, as well as some landscaping improvements and such.
Okay.
I heard there was a comment in regards to the pay gates. So the way we currently have it shown, there's actually a little bit more, about another 10 feet or so, that both lanes can slide back. So, that'll provide the added width to make sure that queue will remain 19 cars without impacting any of the drive
So your
aisles.
testimony is the 19 cars can continue to fit there with or without those, with or without the gates?
That's correct.
Can I just ask a question about this? So I'm not sure if 19's a lot or not a lot. Is that a lot?
19's a lot.
19's a lot.
19's a fair portion. Our applicant here has, I believe, 13 locations across the state, and any of these where we have the pay stations, those are actually very modern equipment that allows you to see different selections of your product. He also mans it with an employee that explains the different products being sold. And the way those gates are operated is only one is up at any given time, so then there's no conflict of merges. So as the gate comes up, vehicle pulls through, they don't have the conflict of merging with the vehicle in the next lane, and they're able to enter the single lane as it enters into the tunnel. So
My question was going to be more, what's the probability of having 26 and then it overflows into the back? Is that?
So I asked my client that, and he can testify, having owned this for the past several years. It hasn't occurred so far. We're not changing it, but your ordinance only requires 15, and we have 19. So we actually have more than what the ordinance requires. So we exceed the requirements.
True,
Jim,
anybody?
that 15 is what's required?
Yeah, 15 is required for a single bay car wash.
Okay.
But is that 15
And
for the whole
just-
property?
But I do think you need some testimony in that regard, because the ordinance is 30 years old and never anticipated this type of facility. I don't have a problem. I think it's going to work fine, but I think you need to get something on the record
But
that tells you it works fine.
And again, we will, but to the extent your concern is only stacking for 19 cars, we're not making the car wash, we're not changing the car wash. It's always functioned with 19 cars.
Well, yes,
The only thing being changed, obviously, is the pay stations to help the efficiency and make it actually go faster.
well, I guess, not that I'm a super duper marketing person here, right? But I'm assuming as you enhance the facility and you add stations and vacuum stations and all that kind of stuff, right? And you fix the outward look to this, and we improve the signage and all that kind of stuff.
We're we're not changing the signage. So I'll have my client testify. This is all being done to accommodate the current market. There is a club-type membership that you can have here. Most of the people are repeat customers. I'll have him testify to all of this, but again, this is not to increase the number of customers that come here. This is not a way to say, hey, we're fancy now. We have a customer base and we have outdated, dilapidated equipment and we're looking to modernize it. That's it. But I'll have him testify to that.
Okay.
Okay, so, just to touch on what Jen has already referenced, so there's 7 vacuum stalls on site. We're proposing to update that equipment and make that a more efficient and more user-friendly vacuum equipment. Same 7 vacuum stalls, that's not changing. The same 2 lane queue, that's also staying with the same amount of capacity. We're actually gaining the operational efficiency with the pay stations, having the selection in the menus, having another person there to kind of describes the type of product you're buying. And also, like I said, the pay gate kind of allows for that, green light, red light kind of scenarios for vehicles to go into the tunnel without conflict. As Jen has indicated already as well, there's 2 dedicated parking spaces on the lot 2, matching the number of employees that's typically anticipated to run the facility. And I believe there was a comment in the planner's review letter that asked for us to formally stripe and to sign those spaces to be dedicated to employees, which we would comply to do so. And we also spoke about the middle driveway closure. So functionally, that's the nearest tunnel to the entrance. That's not good for the queuing. It's an unsafe maneuver. So it's, for many years, been closed for access. And, as part of our phase 1, we're leaving that alone. But as far as phase 2, we had indicated that we are pursuing a access permit to close that. But again, the intention here is to gain some of those operational efficiencies that can be had with the pay stations, with the better vacuum equipment, and then pursue the DOT permit that's required for the phase 2 build out, which is the closure of that particular driveway.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm looking at something here now. The location of the pay stations, are they located there because they have some sort of access into the building at that point? Because the way you're describing the operation and the merging, it doesn't work. You have 2 cars stacked beyond where the gates are. So when a gate opens and closes, that doesn't resolve the issue of the merge, because you're still going to have 2 cars that one needs to merge in front of the other without the benefit of the gate. Whereas if you took the entire pay station operation, moved it to the north, where the gates would be right where the 2 lanes merge into one, that would function the way you're talking about it. But right now, the way it's designed, it's not going to function that way.
Yeah. How about I have my client sworn in, because I think a lot of the questions are operational, and rather than have you wait and trying to remember everything.
However you want to do it. It's okay.
Step up there.
At some point, we'll get all the perspective.
Yeah. What he's saying is, right, okay. So he wants to move up here, so there's only 1 car at a time in line.
I'm just thinking that accomplishes what he's trying to accomplish.
So let's have you sworn in first, Tom.
Yes,
Do you swear any testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And just state your name for the record.
Thomas Fuller, Tom Fuller,
Can you just spell the last name?
Fuller.
All right, and what's your relationship with the applicant?
So I am the owner of
Well,
Team Car Wash.
you're a principal in the entity that owns Team Car Wash.
I'm a principal in Team Car Wash
Thank you, go ahead.
And the property owner.
and principal in the entity that owns the property.
Let's go back a couple of steps.
Yes.
Why are you making all these changes?
It is basically to increase the site efficiency here. So if you have been there, it's been a car wash since 1940. And over time, different things have been done. There used to be additional entrances at the north end of the property on both sides that didn't really work. And they would stack cars going down Route 35, and that wasn't really working. So they closed those up. So it's to ultimately clean that up. It's to increase the efficiency of the pay stations, as we've kind of heard a little bit today. The way they really work is one gate opens, a car goes forward, another gate opens, they'll move forward. With regards to moving them forward further, we have to look at that because there's a required amount of space that they take. It's about 50 feet total.
sorry, someplace between 30 and 50 feet. I
Okay.
don't know the exact amount.
Yeah.
But in front of those pay stations is a big magnetic loop. And so what happens is, I think you had asked the question, you know, where you see the arm potentially coming down in the middle of the car, that can't happen. So what happens is, if the car is underneath that gate, it's on top of a metal magnetic loop, and the gate won't come down. Once the car moves forward, then the gate will come down. And so that's happening simultaneously with the two different things. And so 99% of the time, we're never gonna have, you know, 19 cars, 18 cars stacked up there. What happens in a typical day is a car pulls up or two cars pull up, and sometimes you'll have two there. One gate opens, the car drives around, another gate opens, the car drives
I just want to clarify, my concern wasn't it hitting a car. My concern was that the drawing is
that we
not
couldn't
accurate.
really have the cars there.
You're counting two cars in the middle of a gate, which isn't realistic. And back to Mr. Higgins' point, if you open the gate, it should be only one lane then. That, I think that's what we're
And so
getting
what
at
we
there.
have to look at, what we would
But
have
my
to-
concern wasn't that you were gonna hit a car with a gate. It's really,
but
you're
you can
over counting
actually-
cars.
You can actually have cars stacked like that, because the cars would be stacked there, the gates would just remain open, and so you could actually have.
Tom,
cars
let me
stacked
ask
there.
you a question.
But then that would defeat the point of having the gate to prevent a car driving through.
Tom, let me just ask you a question, if you can come look at this. I think what the suggestion is even if we kept the gates there, if we narrowed this here, so once you come through the gates, only one car can be on the other side of the gate. I don't know that we have to move it. I think it can stay there and would just not, because then what happens is the way this is drawn, the two cars that are past the gate now still have to merge.
Understood. And so what we need to look at is, because these loops are here, do we really have the room to do that? If we can do that, we'll do that for sure. It's just, it looks like this on this map. I'd have to be out in the field
No,
to actually do it.
No, but
Jim, are you sure about your suggestion?
Yes.
What's that?
Are you sure about your suggestion?
Well, my suggestion was basically to help them, because it seemed they wanted to control the merge with the gates. And the way it's drawn now, it doesn't control the merge with the gates.
So what we will do is make this merge sooner.
right, so to follow Mr. Paludas, we'll make it more of a single aisle right after the gate. So only one car can go through.
But
at a
does
time.
that reduce you down to 14 spots then?
And then probably down to 16 or
Six-
17.
Be over 50.
It'll still be over the
Still
15.
be over the 15.
I think what Mr. Fuller was kind of hinting at was that he needs some space in front of the gate
Yeah.
to be able to have the loops, and you can't merge too quickly, otherwise the merge might affect the loops for both gates at the same time.
No, I heard that. That's why I asked Jim if he was,
just
I
wanna
asked him
make
if he
sure
was correct,
that
right?
that was clear.
So I have just a quick question on clarification, because I'm envisioning like a McDonald's or other fast food that has two pay kiosks that you merge into. Does it matter when the cars go through? They're making their menu selection now, right? Like you're ordering food. Does it matter what order then they go through? Or are they going to, when they pull around and go in, is there going to be a token or something that they put in to make sure that they get the right service that they paid for?
No, what happens, there's no token. And so what happens is, the car that's in the left lane, it goes forward, and then the car in the right lane, that gate would open, and it would go behind it, or vice versa. And so what you're ordering, you know, you will remain in that.
No, but I
in that
think what
order.
Mr.
But it matters
Nefili is,
then which order you go through the gates.
That's right.
Okay.
right, so in this scenario, if it wasn't narrowed, then let's call the aisle closer to the building aisle 1, the one closer to the highway number 2. If both 1 and 2 come through the gates and are waiting next to each other, they could switch orders in that scenario. So the only way to ensure that doesn't happen is to narrow it, so once you go through the gate, they're
Correct.
funneled and they have to stay in that order.
That's right.
So
So that's what we will.
Right, so-
Yeah, that's why I made the suggestion I
I think
made.
it's a good one. So what we would, and whatever it is with regard to the loop, we can figure out that spacing, because all this means is it's just shortening the area where it's side-by-side stacking. It doesn't really make any difference as it relates to how they go through. So to the extent we would modify, we would ask that we would do that subject to, should we get there, subject to review of Ben and Jim, provided we don't go under the 15 queue spaces.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, Mr. Fuller, I've been using this car wash for 40 years. And I do wish you the best, though. But one of the things I'm asking is, are we going to increase the efficiency here? Because I can tell you that on a normal day, there's never a problem at that place. But get a snowy day, you get that salt on your car, the pollen, it does stack up onto Route 35. So I guess from a planning side of things, if we have a chance to make a difference, now's the time to make a difference. So I'm asking, are we increasing the efficiency, or is this gonna be one of those things where the gates don't work and we can't, now we're stacking up on 35 and.
So as we started, I own and operate 13 car washes. 9 of those car washes are this style exterior car washes where we're not vacuuming and drying the cars. And at all of those car washes, with the exception of this one, we have these pay stations. This isn't a new technology. This is technology that's been around for 15 years. On my staff, we have a person, and so it's all run by the POS system. It's called DRB, and so we have a dedicated person who just handles this sort of stuff. It is much more efficient than one person driving around. When you go there, if you went there this week, you go around and you see Cliff, the manager, and he asks you what wash would you like, and you're all the way up there, and there's a little chit-chatting that goes on and whatnot. In this instance, you've doubled the capacity to get people to pay. That's step one. So you're making that part of it much more efficient. We'll figure out this loop, the last loop piece, but it's also, to just have a continuous flow of traffic. We've upgraded some of the equipment. We're continuing to upgrade the equipment so that we can process more cars faster than Conti was able to process cars. He had the ability to process 60 cars an hour. We're at a point today, we've redone the electric in the building, all that sort of stuff, and we have the ability to process 100 cars an hour today. When you get to the vacuum portion of it, and you've probably vacuumed there a lot over the last 40 years, it's a mishmash, right? If you're on that space that's closest to Route 35, you're kind of in the way of where the cars are trying to get back out of the property. Aaron will get up and he'll testify to the fact that I think it's about a 7-foot gap that exists there today. When we put in the vacuum stalls, we're getting rid of those big concrete blocks that are in the middle between them so that we can move everything further over so that that 7 feet gets widened to 16 feet to increase the ease of getting out.
And also, how long have you owned the property?
For about a year and a half.
Right, so this is, the operations that we know all these years was not Tom's operation. He's come in and it's changed physically on the outside. Step one was to give it a facelift, but step two is he's been undergoing all of these things. All of this would have been put in 16 months ago had he been able to, but
a lot of other towns we've been able to just go in and whatever difference in ordinances or whatever, put in the pay stations, put in the kiosks, put in the new vacuums. Your rules here are a little bit different. So, when I look at it, I say I'm 18 months behind where I'd like to be because it took me 18 months to get here tonight. But it's all designed to increase the efficiency, the flow on the site, the process more cars, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that, you're an expert in this, and that's all I want to hear. I just want to hear that it's going to be more efficient, it's going to be a better operation, so that we don't have cars down Route 35, turning into that strange way to turn in, and then you weren't sure if you were merging or not. The cones were up, they weren't up, so.
My only skepticism, and first of all, by the way, Dave's never used the vacuum cleaner because I've been in Dave's car, so. that's
Not true.
The thing I'm skeptical about is that typically when you have a better operation and things go efficient, you do increase volume, right? Like the objective isn't, I appreciate you saying it's to be more efficient, but efficiency is to increase volume and increase, more clients and keep clients happy and get them to come more often and all those kind of things. So I am a little skeptical that if it does, I heard what you said about 100 compared to 60. So I'm a little skeptical that there are going to be some of those days where it does bleed out into 35. I'm not sure if that really solves the problem. So I'm not sure how we address it, but.
May I?
Sure.
Okay, couple things. The first one is, right now, if we don't make these changes, the same issue is there, and there's a guarantee it's going to be worse than it is today. I'm sorry, that it will be worse it will continue to be just as bad, where if this gets approved, it will be better. You heard, we can already do 40 more cars, and this will increase efficiency. That's number one. Number two, by formalizing these lanes and by having these pay stations, it's not only going to allow everything to go more quickly, but now those vacuums, it's not really striped. You don't know which side to go on. You're not sure it works. This is now going to make everything safer and make the access aisles the appropriate width. So now everyone's going to be able to move through the site faster. Can we guarantee that there won't be a day that 100 people come and they go? We can't, but it's certainly going to be much better than it would be if nothing gets done.
That's correct.
And
Okay. Anybody have anything?
I just have a question. So
Sure.
I think what concerns me a little bit is that I'm worried about cars backing out into 35. Is the, what I don't like is that we're kind of like, well, we're moving the gates back. We're not sure. Like, I want there to be science behind this, and I feel like we should not be messing with industry standards. It needs to be something. This needs to be something that's discussed between Ben and Jim and maybe the operator.
And Eric, to that point, we're not going to move the gates. The gates don't need to move. I think what we offered was everything stays how it is, and we just narrow the merge so two cars can't be side by side after the gate.
Does it reduce, though, the cars that could back up under 30? Like, I just don't want there to be less.
I think it changes it by one car, one or two cars, but
I
again,
think realistically, what's going to happen with the overall operation is, as the owner said, you have those peak days during the winter when people's cars get salty, they want to bring them in and get them washed, or maybe in the spring with the pollen and everything. There will be peak days. I don't think those peak days are going to change. I think what this is going to do is enable him to get more cars through and entice people to use the car wash more on those off-peak days, when instead of being 10 cars in line, there may be 11 or 12 cars in line, and they know they're going to get through even faster. Whereas in today's, the way it's designed today, they see 8 cars in line, they're not going to want to go because they know it's going to take them a while.
Okay. Let's continue with the discussion here.
thanks, Tom.
Okay.
I think, Aaron, we alluded to it. Currently where the vacuums are, it's a very narrow and honestly non-compliant access aisle to come out. We're actually improving that and widening it to 16 feet and making it compliant, and that was at Ben's suggestion.
That's correct, yeah. It'll be a safer turn to exit back onto 35. So circulation-wise, I know that was a thing that was mentioned before. Circulation pattern stays the same. Now the lanes are wider, so it allows for more room to get back onto 35.
Okay, and with regard to the trash enclosure, currently, they're just like most of the businesses there. There's no trash enclosure, there's just a dumpster kind of plopped down behind the building. And we're agreeable to constructing a compliant trash enclosure for that, but the trash has to stay in the same location in order for it to be accessed, so we would be seeking a variance to have the enclosure in the front yard.
That's correct.
When you look at this diagram, do you have an anticipation where that's going to be?
Likely being somewhere between the two notches of the building on that, if you're looking on the page, it's on the top side along the Kings Highway.
Where the fence currently is.
Yeah, along the Kings Highway frontage. So we'll be seeking that front yard variance.
What is this box right here?
Do you have that? This one?
The box on top of the yellow box?
No, this
So there's a gray
That
box.
box?
That's a great cover.
Okay, so it would potentially be behind that?
No, it would be in this corner
Okay.
here.
All right, so it would be in between the two bump outs, Mr. Weinstein, on the south side of that. But again, we would be submitting a plan subject to review by.
Yep, just
Ben.
curious, yep. Okay.
That's the logical place.
Right. And right now, there's no landscaping in between the queue lanes and the highway, so it's basically.
Little barren right now.
Right. And we're proposing to install the
39 evergreen shrubs, English laurels, so they'll grow to be about 3 to 4 foot height. They're evergreen shrub, but they do flower. So probably this time of the year they're flowering right now. So we feel that provide some screening from the headlights for the cars in the queue, as well as provide some site beautification. So
Nice.
And with regard to the request on the ginkgo, was it ginkgo trees? Do I remember that one? The ginkgo trees will work with Jim to satisfy the Environmental Commission, and where possible, we will add we're not taking any trees away, but we'll add more to the extent we can.
What was the requirement for the 39, for the area for the 39?
I don't understand the question.
You're saying you're putting 39 trees, right?
39 shrubs.
39 shrubs,
Yeah,
not trees,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
No, no, shrubs.
Yeah, no,
good point.
the trees, I'll tell you what the requirement is, and there's no way they can meet that.
15 per acre.
What's that?
I think it's 15 trees an acre.
15 an acre, yeah, and that's the total 10, total of 10. Street trees, there's more than that in street trees, but again, I don't think you could put 10 trees on the site, and you definitely they can't meet the street tree requirement either.
Nothing exists there now. Well, there's 2 trees that exist there now, but we're going to vastly improve it. We'll work with Jim to put them anywhere we can. And obviously, as part of phase 2, when we have that little landscaped area, we'll be able to add even more.
Okay.
And when we get to the types of plants, I will bounce them off in one pulp.
I have a question about the landscape area. Is there an elevation difference between the two? Or, okay, so I mean, I hate to say this, but is there, maybe an idea for a guardrail or something? I mean, it's just you have traffic, it's so close.
Can I come up and you point to me what you're talking about?
So, right there, that little grass strip there, so the cars are, the 35 traffic is going this way, and then
No, all our trees are gonna be here on the side of the property. Nothing's gonna be by the highway.
right, well, I'm just saying is maybe instead of the landscape, or maybe in addition to it, is there any way that there would be a guardrail of some type, or something like that?
The DOT wouldn't allow it.
They wouldn't allow it,
No.
okay, so there's no barrier, it's just a.
Yeah.
That's how it's existed for.
Yeah.
I know, that's why I said I hate to, because
Yeah.
it's part of this unique site like that.
It's about a 2-foot grade change, and typically DOT has a warrant analysis for guide rails and such, within the collision zone. So there's no warrant for it in that particular location. The way we'll do the landscaping, is essentially it'll be graded down at a stabilized berm with the landscaping that adds to the stabilization. But there's no warrant for it on that outside, just because it's slow-moving vehicles and it's 14-foot wide lane. There's no need for it.
But also, Eric, there's a curb
Yes.
in between the highway and our
Okay, so
property.
curb, a little
There's a
elevation,
curb,
so-
then a grass area, then our landscaping. Yeah, so it's not as if the cars can, I understand what it looks
Yeah.
like on that, but there's actually a
Sounds
curb.
good. No,
Yeah.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Can you just remind me, what are the hours of operation?
Right now, it's 8 to 6.
Okay.
And that's subject to change, obviously, as long as we're in compliance with your ordinance. And speaking, and that's a great segue, since we're not changing any lights, we didn't prepare a lighting plan, but Ben had asked us to look at it and make sure that it was adequate. So, Aaron, you went out on site, you did light readings, and what did you find as it relates to the car wash operation?
So we went out on the April 18th at night, and we found that generally the site is adequately lit as far as the existing light illuminations for the car wash operations.
Okay, and so we're not proposing any changes, because even at night, the readings were all acceptable, and while they might not meet the ordinance to the extent that it would be required, it's adequate for safe use.
Yes, correct.
And there are some areas on the other lot where we're not operating the car wash, where there may be some deficiencies, but since we won't have customers, we won't have employees in those areas, those will all be addressed if, as, and when we come back for that lot.
Mr. Chairman, I'm fine with that, especially because there's no change to the layout of the site and for, any of there's no new parking areas or anything like that, so the existing lighting should be fine.
Okay, thanks, Bennett.
I do have one question I meant to ask before, and that is the number of employees on maximum shift.
It's 2, right?
2. Is it 2? It is 2, okay. So then the parking does meet the conditional use requirement for employees.
Okay.
Can I ask, for the electric vehicles, does the ordinance required for car washes, or since they do have parking spots there, are they required to put in electric charging stations?
they're not for a site that already exists, and you have to have at least 25 parking spaces to trigger the need for electric vehicles.
Okay.
Charging stations.
But also, the only ones who could use the electric vehicle would be the employees.
Yeah, well, hopefully one day we're all going to have electric vehicles, and those employees are going to need a place to charge. So, you know, that's where I'm going.
But the good news is that if that need arises and the applicant wants to put them in, that site plan approval isn't required for that. So they could just go pull a permit and do that in the future if the need arises.
All right. Yeah, I just wasn't sure with the ordinance what triggered it. All right.
Okay. What else would you like to share with us?
I'm just looking to make sure that we hit everything in the letter. The canopies we talked about. Cuts we talked about, menu boards. Yeah, I think we addressed everything. Was there anything in your letter, Ben?
Did you guys think they addressed,
I had in there was any possible need for screening the central vacuum producer. What does that look like?
Sure. Yeah, the intended central vacuum producer unit would be located on the far side of 35, so you really can't see it. It's blocked by the building. That's where a lot of the mechanical equipment currently are. I'm sure everybody on the board understands what Kings Highway looks like on that side. Additionally, the adjacent user is the self-storage facility, and we had the added benefit of existing landscaping along that front. So,
But it's also no taller than the big vacuum stations that are already there.
correct.
And if you can look, if the board looks on Kings Highway next to the number 2 for the parking spaces, there's a box that talks about it.
Ben, did you?
Yeah, I think it's fine, especially being that the site across the street is the self-storage facility, and it does have landscaping on their side, so it's not up against the Route 35 right away, so I'm fine with that.
Okay. Jim, is there anything on your report that you feel like needs to be elaborated on here?
I think they've covered everything.
Okay.
Jim, I just have a quick question for you, though. The 39 shrubs that they're gonna put in that strip, do you feel confident that they're going to thrive?
I looked at them, I know the plant, I think they will thrive. I did recommend, rather than having a sprinkler system, that they do a drip line.
Which we agreed to.
I agreed to. And I think that will be it, that'll work for it then.
I mean, you know, this is, my thought on this is the gateway to Ocean Township for folks coming down 35 South. And I think that those shrubs, if they look great, it's gonna make it look a lot better.
Yeah.
But if they're all dead,
Yeah, that's why I wanted the drip line. The sprinkler system isn't gonna work there, it's gonna wind up washing the cars before they get into the
discount.
facility, yeah.
So Jim, you made a comment here about the menu boards, although there should be some testimony that needs the area for the height of these signs. Did you need to, what was agreed on?
It wouldn't hurt to have some testimony that why they need to be that size.
Right.
I don't have a problem with them being that size.
You wanna go into that?
Sure. Yeah, the proposed menu board sign, they're going to precede those pay stations, and essentially it's going to explain to the customer in a place that they can actually see it, you know, the type of different products you can purchase at the pay station. So they're 26.8 square feet each, and there's 2 of them for each of the pay stations. And you know, visibility wise, we're not anticipating a visual impact because it is interior to the site. It's not fronting 35,
The height of them.
7 feet tall.
Okay. Anybody have an issue with that or comment about it?
Seems pretty typical for a car wash, and I think that's part of the marketing that's involved here.
Okay.
Right?
I think just initially, you're gonna have some confusion when you first pull in there for the first time, but say you've got somebody on site who's gonna be the car wash expert, he's gonna say you know, you want the package A, B, or C, you're gonna move through. But I think initially it'll be a little confusing, but when you go for your 50th time, you'll be fine, I imagine.
So the only other question, there are a lot of fire safety issues that are with regard to the train cellar building. Are you going to do anything to try to deal with those?
We have we have a code enforcement report saying that
Yeah,
there's
so,
no issue, we're in full compliance.
I've had ongoing conversations with the fire code person.
This is since January?
Yeah, and so he had sent us a letter, we wanted specific signs put up, well, first he said we didn't have to put up, he sent it, we complied, he sent recently sent a letter, he put up the hazard signs that he requested, and I got a sign off from him for having done that.
Okay, because we have the fire marshal report from January 24th says there's a lot of violations.
We had further conversations with him, letters.
The answer is we'll satisfy the fire marshal.
Okay, good.
I mean, that, we have no choice, otherwise
Okay.
they'll issue.
Okay, so you're going to work, so Jim, you're going to work with the applicant on the maximum number of trees, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right.
And with the location, and Ben and I are working with the location of the trash enclosure.
Right, okay.
I just have one more question for Ben. Ben, I'm just reading the detective's report here. It said something about lighting suggestion. Are these lights that are already there and compliant with this, or is there something else in the
The police
Yeah.
report. I don't know if I have a copy of that.
Yeah,
So I
cut
remember
off
what it said.
exterior lighting should be placed on the entire exterior of the building, eliminate human activity, crime prevention, the lights remain from dusk until dawn.
Yeah, so the site is illuminated, and I think the testimony was that it meets the ordinance, correct?
Well, it certainly meets the safety requirements as outlined by this review letter. That was what we were listening. It might not meet the letter, meaning the ratios and everything else, but we went out to make sure that it was meeting the intent of what he's asking for, that there's no dark spots and.
I just wanna make sure we're not missing something, that's all.
Yeah, no, I think that the testimony was provided to address that letter.
Okay.
So I'm fine with it.
Fair enough.
Point with regards to security of the site. I know it is the gateway of Township, I know that's why maybe there's a bigger concern with this site. People see it on the way in to town. Are the vacuums, are they 24/7?
No.
Okay.
The vacuums get turned off when the car wash closes. It's because of the central nature of it, so there's no vacuum.
That's not standard. That's a huge, awesome thing to the sample. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know how it would work. We know back in the day, anyone could.
With quarters.
Yeah, with quarters. Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I just want to get clarification. You said 60 cars an hour
100 an hour.
going through there. How
100.
long does it take to go through the car wash? Once I already paid, I'm in, I merged in, I'm next, I'm going through the tunnel. Is it a set time for every car? Is there, if I get the super deluxe, they're longer?
So we have what we call the chain speed, and I'm not an engineer, so I'll explain, I understand finance. But, so previously they would run the chain speed at 60 cars per hour, which means it took about a minute for each car to get washed. Now, what we've done with it, we can run the chain speeds at 120 cars an hour, and we can theoretically wash 120 cars an hour, so that would be, I guess 30 seconds.
30 seconds to wash the car.
Yeah, just to get through
To
there.
get through that. Now, how much time do I get when I go through there to have at the vacuum? Is there a set time that I have?
We usually will have a sign someplace.
Is that something I will pay forward first, or is that complimentary with the car wash?
So the vacuums will be free with the car wash, so there's no more porters or any of that sort of stuff. And we'll generally put a sign that says, please limit yourself to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Now, most people are significantly less than that.
Also, how do you keep people from coming to just use the vacuums if they're not getting a car wash?
Well, we thoroughly discourage them from doing that, but what happens is you come out of the front of the car wash. I mean, in theory, somebody could pull into the lot and they could use one of those vacuums, and that's just sort of kind of the cost of doing business and giving your customers the free vacuums. And the managers kind of keep track of that, and they see somebody out there and they say, hey, look.
But there are scenarios where the vacuums are all used and someone might not be able to get their vacuum.
Yeah, but that's been the case again for the last.
Right. No. I just think going to what Mr. Paludas.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand that. I was trying to do the math on the timing. It wasn't, you have 30 seconds, I'm in the car tunnel for 30 seconds, then I get a maximum of 10 minutes to vacuum.
But not everybody, so that's the.
Not everybody gets 30 seconds?
It would be great if I had like 2 acres and I could have 50 of those vacuums, but.
No, I was asking for the tunnel, it's 30 seconds, that's.
when it's going at maximum speed, yeah.
Just a question too. From Kings Highway, there's still an enter arrow I can see from the aerial. Is that still needed to have it? What would be the purpose of someone coming in from Kings Highway to back in there? Is there a purpose anymore?
That they could actually come into the car wash that way. Yeah,
Oh,
the,
they could, okay, so that, okay, fair enough.
yeah,
fair
that,
enough, yep.
we would actually, you know, that,
So I guess there's some cross traffic there. I know
Correct.
It's always been like that, I know, it's, I don't wanna, yeah. I think there are people that someone said that are comfortable coming from that direction, that's definitely true. People don't, especially locals in town, want to come through Kings Highway instead of going around.
right.
Okay. Do we feel like we've
So
gotten all
one last
the major
one.
things?
One last, on the Serpentine, you know, you said that what's changed, you own the lot next door, so were you ever considering expanding the Serpentine around that circle to accommodate more cars?
No, I don't, no, what's there now has worked, and it would artificially go around and just have an open space, so, no, the only way to do that would be to somehow relocate the building.
Yeah, it would. Well, I mean, the whole concern was that it's gonna go out into Highway 35. I think that was everyone's concern. And if you're saying it's 18, maybe it's 16, but if you really need to include it, you now own the second lot there. Can you expand that to include the stat? Is there a reason why?
Yeah, so the lots themselves, they taper down, and it gets
Right.
to a certain narrowness in the lot where the minimum radius on the inside, it becomes a little bit unachievable for cars to kind of get all the way back to 180. So we would love to have a longer queue and everything. It's great for operations, but it gets to a certain point where there's a very diminishing narrowness where it doesn't really work anymore.
A Ford F-250 couldn't do it, is what he's saying.
But also, the reality is, your ordinance requires 15 spaces. We're gonna have an excess of 15 spaces. So, you know, you don't zone or you don't plan for the one day a year where, you know, there might be a snowstorm and there might be a backup. Your ordinance does it for the everyday.
No, I was just going off, Mr. Fuller said he wished he had 2 acres, but he has the other
No,
additional
to
property.
add more vacuums, he meant, not for the queue.
But he's saying you wanted more acreage, you have the acreage there, you could actually use it for the stacking. That was my point.
Understood, so.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Do you guys have anything you want to say right now? Okay. So I'm going to open this up to the public now for public comment. Anybody from the public like to make a comment about this application?
I think they're all just fans of Julia in the public. I recognize some of those faces.
If you felt like you wanted to come up and make a comment about Julia, you're perfectly happy to do that.
Am I wrong?
Dad? Nothing? Come on.
Seeing nobody from the public,
See-
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. Anything else for anybody here for us to discuss? No? Okay. Anybody like to make a motion at this time?
I just did.
Oh, we have to have a vote to close the public session, sorry.
Yes.
You can do
Yes.
that all in favor, you don't have
Yeah,
to.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. Okay, so now, bringing this to a close, anybody like to make a motion for any,
Make-
on the applicant?
Positive resolution.
Okay. So anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we're going to be voting for approving the applicant with some of the stipulations that we've already identified, correct?
Correct.
You got them? Okay. All right, good. Let's have a roll call on this.
Yes.
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 Thank you very much.
Congratulations. And thanks for all the explanation.
Look forward to using the car wash.
Don't worry about the vacuums, though.
After my car, I just said I'm back.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to a review of the proposed ordinance number 2457, flags and pennants. This is really for us to just approve that we all believe that it adheres to the master plan. So,
I'd like to make a motion that it does adhere to the master plan.
okay, great. Can I get a second?
Second.
Great. I think we should probably have a roll call on it. Yeah, have a roll call on it. Yep.
Sure, yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to close meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, nice meeting, everybody.